Welcome to the late week mailbag, your Detroit Lions late week podcast where we answer your Detroit Lions questions here live on Twitch, live on YouTube, and of course available on any of your podcasting platforms. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit, and you can find me at Detroit Online on social media. With me, as always, is the machine, is the more active general manager of Pride of Detroit, and you can find him at Erik Schlitt on Twitter. It's Erik Schlitt. How we doing, buddy?
Hey, bud. I'm getting ready for that title to actually have some meaning over the next week.
Yeah, you are going to have to take the reins here a little bit next week as I'm on vacation, which is why we're trying to fit in one last mailbag here before I take a little bit of a break. And you know, it's been a pretty calm time in Lions fandom here, so I figured this is just going to be a nice little easy podcast to do where everyone's just like, yeah, man, what a fun week it's been. So we're going to do that. We're also going to sit here for 2 hours on a Friday morning/afternoon and hope that nothing happens in terms of free agency that immediately makes this podcast irrelevant. But at the same time, I think both of us are also kind of half wishing that something does happen because I think, like a lot of fans, we just want to see what this team is going to look like on the other side. And the Lions have been taking their sweet time. So,
yeah. Look, of the top 20 free agents that the Lions had, that I ranked them in order of who I thought they should re-sign.
Yep.
They've re-signed 5 of those 20. Mm-hmm. 5 of them are still free agents, and the other 10 are already gone. Like that's an unusual average, right? Yeah. Like normally they bring back about half of their internal free agents, and that's what they've done over the last 4 years. So this year it's certainly down. Things are certainly slower, and the fan base is certainly calm about it.
Yes. And we're going to start right off there with Ryan J., one of our Pride of Detroit direct subscribers, says, on a level of 0 to terrified, how concerned should we be as Lions fans that the roster doesn't really seem to have gotten better yet so far in free agency?
Well, I would caution anyone to be terrified. And I'm certainly getting a lot of texts from people from all over the place that are asking me if the Lions are in a semi-rebuild type of situation.
Yeah. I've heard the term gap year a lot, and I feel like I don't know who's. I feel like that was thrown around on some, like, maybe a radio station or a podcast, and now everyone is clinging to the term gap year, which is not something I adhere to. But anyways, didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
You.
No, that's a good context. But I do think it's unusual for the Lions to be in this spot because there's some factors that, as Lions fans, we've never really experienced, right? Mm-hmm. In a modern NFL, with the salary cap, the rookie scale, all those things, the Lions have never really been at a point where they've been consistent winners and gotten to a point where they have to adjust their salary cap accordingly. And so you've never really had this many youth on the roster that have required so much capital that they've been forced to shed players that everyone is familiar with. And so it's an unusual spot for Detroit fans to be in. It's not overly unusual to see teams that are consistent winners around the NFL do. So it's not an unusual spot right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. But
it's uncomfortable, certainly, because the roster is not filled out the way that that we're used to. But I wouldn't get to the terrified end of the spectrum yet, because we haven't seen the totality of how things go. Right. We're just starting to see salaries drop pretty significantly. There's Brett Whitefield just wrote an article on the website this morning about 8, or we had 9, one of them's gone now, but there's 8 free agents that could be bargain free agents that the Lions could bring in, I think would make people feel a lot more comfortable. So when we see them add these veterans at these discounted prices, I think people will start to calm a little bit. When we see what happens with the draft, the totality of how they build this roster is far from settled. And I'm not sure that we'll really understand the direction that this is headed until we see that. So
Right.
I've got at least another couple of weeks in me before I start even getting over the halfway point before, getting to that terrified.
So you're not
So
even at a 5 yet.
no,
You're at like a 3
look,
or 4.
I get the trepidation.
Sure,
I
of course.
understand the concern,
Yep.
and it's certainly unusual, which is uncomfortable.
Yep.
But I also recognize that there's a long way to go still.
I I'm going to wet blanket, and then I'm going to try to reel everyone back in here.
Awesome.
The unfortunate truth of where the Lions are at as a team, as a franchise, they're likely not going to get better this offseason. I think they are going to go into the season with a worse roster than they had last year. That is an uncomfortable truth for most teams that are really good and have a really good core of players. If you look around the division, the Packers are hemorrhaging players. The Bears are hemorrhaging players. The Eagles are hemorrhaging players. The Seahawks are hemorrhaging players. The Broncos are hemorrhaging players. The Ravens are hemorrhaging players. Like it's the nature of this business that when you're good, everything is set up for you to suddenly get worse. They want parity in this league, so the salary cap, the draft order, the waiver claim order, everything is set up so that good teams make it hard to get better. It is way harder for them to get better. Everything is set up to them. Now, that being said, one of the ways the Lions have navigated free agency pretty successfully in the past is in these second and third waves of free agency.
Right.
I mentioned
perfect
this before.
Time for a vacation.
Shut up. All these guys that were lamenting losing, right? Grant Stewart, Amik Robertson, Roy Lopez, Khalif Raymond, Al-Qadim Muhammad. These were guys that were not Monday, Tuesday, day 1, day 2 guys that they picked up in free agency. They were second and third wave guys. Now, we're pretty close to the third wave now. And so, like, I understand, like, the uncomfortable, like, usually by now they had signed some of these, like, second wave guys. And I think, Christian Izien, I think, certainly falls into that category of, like, young, hungry guy that probably has a higher ceiling. Cade Mays is kind of in that same thing where it's just like, obviously he was one of the top centers available, but he's young, he's hungry. Like, that to me is the strategy that I'm seeing emerge here is, and I mentioned in the last podcast, is it feels like this team is just ready to get younger and hungrier and get these guys that have chip on their shoulders, rather than going with like the moderately aged veteran that can plug a hole here, rather than, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you know there's only one player on the roster over 30 years old right now?
Well, that's only because the Teddy Bridgewater thing isn't official, but yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, but
yes,
but they're both going to be
Goff.
quarterbacks is my point.
Yes.
Is that if you're the only veterans are the quarterbacks and everyone else is young. But I was trying to reemphasize your point.
Yeah. It does feel like this is a bit of a, I don't want to say retool or reset or whatever, but it feels like when you go back to that enigmatic comment that Dan Campbell made about getting back to what they were a couple years ago, it's refueling this, the bottom of this roster, the bottom and middle of this roster with just young, hungry dudes, and let them go out and battle. The problem is they don't have enough bodies right now, and that's why everyone's freaking out. They don't have a starting edge. They don't have a third edge. They don't have a will linebacker. They don't have a nickel or a safety. I'm not sure. They don't really have a starting tackle, in my opinion, outside of Panay. So I get, like all of you guys, I get the trepidation. And I get it sucks, even from like just an emotional standpoint, to lose some of these veteran leader type players. But this always kind of had to be the direction this team was going to go if they were going to follow Brad Holmes' plan of, hey, we're going to build this foundation full of extremely talented guys, and then we're going to go and replace them with a new young generation of young cheap guys. That's what they're doing.
So excuse me. So, to again, further emphasize this point. They have 68 guys on the, well, I'm sorry. They have 59 guys on the roster right now, plus 9 draft picks should take them up to 68.
Yeah.
Again, if Kai Robishaw's not on the team, that drops you to 67. I can't believe we still don't have clarification on that yet, but we don't.
Right.
So that leaves 22, 23 guys, and you're at most picking up probably 15 UDFAs, which means they're probably going to add 6 to 7 more free agents.
Yeah.
Right.
It's still lots
so
to go.
like right. And so there's time to add these veterans. And I think they're just being very selective.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to, in my opinion, if they're going to add a guy over 30, and this seems to be the game plan from my seat, is that it's going to have to be, as Brett put it in his article, like a mercenary, a guy who's coming in for 1 year just to help them stabilize a position, right?
Yep.
And so like Cameron Jordan, right? Cameron Jordan, if they go out and they sign Cameron Jordan or another edge, AJ Epinesa, like whoever, right?
Yep.
That calms it down a little bit, right? Like that settles that position because they've kind of settled a bunch of their starting holes. They've put a body in who can play, who can, at least challenge for a starting role at every position except edge. Edge is the one that's just kind of out there that hasn't been addressed. So that's the one that I'm keen on. And it wouldn't surprise me to see a over 30-year-old veteran come in to help kind of hold that spot down.
The last point I'll make on this like youth movement that's happening that I wrote about before, according to Spot Track, they track average team age. Last year, the Lions' average team age was 27.1, fifth oldest in the league. Right now, in 2026, granted they only have 56 players on their active roster, where most teams, which is actually the second fewest amount of rostered players, they are the second youngest team at 26.1 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Only behind the Miami Dolphins, who are in the midst of their own little rebuild thing. So this does seem to me at least intentional. Now, like you said, if they add one of these mercenaries guys, it's going to throw some of the numbers off and they'll probably fall
but not much
towards the middle of the pack. But the point is, like, they are clearly moving on from some of these veterans and trying to replace them with some of their young talent. And this has been years in the making in a lot of these instances, right? When you draft Tyleek, it's because you knew you were going to move on eventually from DJ Reader. He could still come back at this point, but when you draft your corners, you there was an expectation that they were eventually going to take over. So maybe that's why you let Meek go. Alex was obviously the game plan for Alex was built years ago when they drafted Jack Campbell. So it's something they've been looking to do. I'm not advocating necessarily for the strategy. I'm not saying it's a great strategy. I'm not saying that the Lions are going to be just fine, because it's going to require leaps of faith in players that we don't know about, right? It's going to take a leap of faith in Derek Barnes. It's going to take a leap of faith maybe in Ennis Rakestraw. It's going to take a leap of faith in maybe a rookie tackle. There's going to be inherently a lot of risk in this strategy, but I can at least understand from a philosophical standpoint why they might be taking this approach.
I a week ago suggested that with 9 draft picks, the Lions probably wouldn't use all of them because they wouldn't have the roster space, and that they might package some of those day 3 picks to move up. I'm starting to rethink that strategy a week later now and thinking they may use all 9 and just say, we're going to just fill depth and draft develop. And this is all part of the plan, right?
Yeah. It's bloodbath again. It's bloodbath time. Let's throw a bunch of bodies at a position.
Yeah.
Hopefully at edge at some point and see who wins a spot.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I'm, again, we're speculating here, but taking a tackle in the first round, signing a guy like Cam Jordan, and then drafting an edge in the second round, that seems to be a very logical, the way things are setting up. It certainly seems that could be the way. If they end up taking a different approach on the edge, and maybe they want to sign 2 veterans or something like that, they want to sign, guys and continue this rotational thing. I could see them maybe go tackle in the first round and then like a linebacker in the second round,
Yeah,
right? Or maybe they get creative, right? And you still package to get up and get one of those edge linebacker guys in the third or something. Like it's,
sure.
I know they have a plan. All we're doing out here is trying to, solve
Put the
the
pieces
puzzle.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. That was only one question, and we went 15 minutes on it. So,
Yeah, but I bet we touched on a few others. That would
maybe
be
a little
my
bit.
guess.
Craig F asks, is there a reason we haven't seen a lot of splashes in free agency because Brad Holmes believes the roster is better than the fan base feels it is? As if they aren't being bit, as if they aren't being, oh gosh, as if they aren't being bit by the injury bug this season, they're going to be, as if, okay. Saying, if they don't get bit by the injury bug, maybe they'll just be okay. Because basically, are we all being reactionary because we feel like we are not upgrading fast enough?
That was smooth.
Thank you. Nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really think this is mostly a financial situation
Yeah.
where when you are investing so much money into youth that
Yeah.
you've developed,
Yep.
you don't have the money to spend on the veterans that are trying to get that one last big contract. And instead, you're now like those guys are veterans, right? Like I know we don't think about like Panay Sewell and Amon
Right.
Ra being veterans, but they're 5 years in the league.
Yeah,
They're
that's better.
veterans.
Yeah.
Like they are we
By
both
definition,
of
a
us
veteran.
right both of us independently wrote about the youth movement this week, right? And we talked about how those guys that were part of those first couple of draft classes are now expected to be the veteran leadership on this team. And so now it almost looks like Holmes is reinvesting in this youth
Yeah.
because that's where it's cheaper to acquire the talent to again try and draft and develop further. Um, it's it's an interesting strategy, you know what I mean? And if it pays off, you're setting the team up for years.
Yeah.
But if you don't play it just right, you can tip the scales and end up having a really bad team,
Of
right?
course.
And that's where the trick comes. Like
Yeah.
this, I didn't think this was going to be as important. Like we all talked about, this was going to be an important offseason for Brad Holmes, but the strategy that they've decided to take has really upped the level of importance that he hits.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
in a lot of
it's
areas.
increased the level of difficulty, right? Because now
Yes.
you need to find contributors that are bargain bin type guys. And listen, he's
is-
done a relatively good job of that in the past, but it feels like there's even more pressure because
Yeah. The road that they've taken is a high risk, high reward.
yes.
As opposed to yes, right?
Well,
Like
mean,
I
the
thought,
thing is, the other route is also high risk. Like if the other route is going out and making splash moves here and there, that is high risk, high reward, right? That is
sure,
okay.
it's a different.
You're going all in on this year, but like there is going to be
Right.
significant fallout in following years. And I know we look at the Eagles and I know we
Right.
look at the Rams and we say, what do you mean? They've been doing that high risk, high reward, and there's never been any risk. Everything's working out for those teams. And I would push back on that at
Established
least
GMs.
a little bit. One, they're
Yeah,
established GMs.
They have established GMs. Yep.
Two, like it's required incredible drafting in hitting on day 3 picks.
Yes.
And it's also included down years. Like the Eagles were terrible in 2024 and they weren't great last year either. And I know like those are still better than what the Lions did last year as well. Like, the Lions had a down year doing their strategy. I
Sure.
think the point is like when you get this good and this expensive and your core is that talented, every margin of error, no matter which direction you go, is tiny.
Yeah. I do think this direction that they've taken has even narrowed that scope, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Like I really think like if they would have kept doing what we've seen them doing,
Yeah.
that it maybe it lessens the room for error this year, makes things a little harder next year and in the years future. By taking this approach, you're putting a lot of eggs in this basket that you're going to make the right decisions
Yeah.
and draft the right people.
Yeah.
And then if it works, things get a lot easier. in the upcoming years, in my opinion, because you're gonna if you can take if you
Because
can
you
get
haven't mortgaged
five
your future.
guys
Yeah.
exactly because you haven't mortgaged your future, and you've brought in an affection of players
Yep.
that can be your next level of base that you
Yep.
can build on. It's really tricky to go this route, but if Brad can pull this off, he'll be mentioned in the upper echelon of those GMs. Right now, I
Yeah.
think he's known as a really good drafter. He showed some free agency awareness last year that he hadn't previously, which
Yep.
I enjoyed. Um, but this is becoming because they're taking this approach. It's becoming more of a pivotal year for him
Sure.
than I it had anticipated before
Yeah.
this week.
I mean, it was always some level of pivotal, though, right? Because, again, like, to do what Brad Holmes did
No,
in the
it
first
was.
5 years,
Yeah.
that proved he's a good GM. To be able to
Yes.
sustain that success, to be able to sustain success at all, makes you a great GM. Just because of
Yeah, he's
everything we just
good.
talked about, like the ability to overcome all of the the pitfalls of being a good
Hmm.
team and all of the roadblocks that the NFL sets up for parity in this league. If you can maintain a good team, that makes you a great GM.
Yeah. And that's the seesaw he's on. That's
Right.
the tightrope he's walking here.
Yep.
He's been good. Can he be great? If he can hit it, if he can hit it on the draft, if he can find some late cheap free agents, like
Yep.
there's an opportunity for him to increase his reputation here.
Yeah. So stop trading up. Josh from Twitter asks, "Who is your favorite free agent edge still out there that is realistic?"
I think Cam Jordan is
Yeah.
the most realistic.
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
kind of
know,
think it might be Epinesa though, especially because
I
Epinesa still kind of fits everything that, like, he's young, he'll probably come pretty cheap, he's a good run
well,
blocker, like,
let me ask you this.
yeah,
Is he your favorite or is he the most realistic?
most realistic
Because
is my answer.
right.
Yes.
I agree with you. I,
Yeah.
I agree. I think Epinesa is the most realistic, but my favorite, who
Yeah.
is also realistic, is probably Cam Jordan. I do like the idea of Clowney. I didn't really think about it but I thought Brett did a nice job of highlighting why it might work.
Yeah.
I still like Cam Jordan better. Probably Epinesa I rank in there in two, and then probably Clowney third.
My only pushback with Cam Jordan, I think it's going to be very expensive. Because,
I
like,
don't.
last year,
Every
last
day
year,
that goes by, it helps a little bit, even though
sure.
it's not as much with the veterans, like the established veterans like Cam, but I think it helps a little bit every day.
I feel like I remember reading that he's like, yeah, I kind of did the Saints a favor last year with my contract, and I think it was 1 year, $6 million, and he's like, I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm gonna get paid this time, and so, like, I think he might inch towards 10. And if that's
Sure.
the case, that's I mean, you're gonna have to void year that that bad boy to fit him.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can get it a little bit lower, um, if you can get it closer to 8,
Yeah.
I think you'd take that, especially for the type of player that he is, because again, good player, best player probably on a
Yeah.
really bad defense
True.
and a bad defensive line. And now you put him in a situation where there's a chance for him to make life a lot easier for him
True.
lining up on the edge opposite Aiden.
My only issue with that, and honestly, it's probably the same with Epinesa, because I don't know how much you're playing Epinesa on third downs, given his
Yeah.
meh.
Yeah. You're going to need to
Pass
get
rush.
a pass rusher.
Right. Like, if are you gonna pay $8 to $9 million for Cam Jordan? 500 snaps, 600 snaps a year. It's
I
tough.
don't know.
It's tough.
It
It's a
depends.
tough
I
sell
mean,
for me,
look,
but I get it.
I still think, look, there's a reason he got paid last year what he got paid, right? Because that's kind of the going rate for a guy that's going to give you that level of snaps, right? And
Yeah.
I think the Lions have been really, and historically been really good with putting a price tag on somebody and sticking to it. And it certainly seems like they're doing that this year,
Yeah.
right? Because
For
some
sure.
of these deals that are out there, you're like, I think the Lions could have made that deal. But if the Lions they've slotted money and they know where they want to spend it, and we'll see where it goes. Hopefully, they the next move makes everything look a little clearer. But I've been saying the next move here for a couple of days now.
Right. Christian Izien, is that not the big move? Speaking of, let's talk Christian Izien, because that's where our next question comes from. From Ash Soden, asks, based on health and personnel available on the roster as of this time, are you slotting Izien as the nickelback or at safety?
Yeah, I've been debating that
we had this
for a
conversation
while.
This morning, yeah.
Yeah, which is why. So normally I write a roster impact article for every new free agent.
Yeah.
And that one has been delayed because I've been just trying to figure out Izien.
To like very timely, they just announced it, like officially the Lions list him as a defensive back. So no help to you.
Yeah, no, at all. And so I'm viewing him as a younger Avonte Maddox. I'm viewing him as a guy who can spot start at safety, potentially be in the mix to win a nickel job. It's a younger, maybe like I think Izien has a better ceiling than Avonte does, but Avonte is a more established veteran and he was great last year. Yeah. So I would still like to see Avonte return because it just gives them that many more options and that much more flexibility. Sure. But I think Izien fits that role in a lot of ways where he can be a guy who can play all three interior safety spots. He can play nickel. And I believe he's even taken some snaps at outside corner with Tampa Bay in the past as well. So
yeah, a little bit.
I am right now, to answer Ash's question, I'm putting him at nickel because I don't know where else to put him. But I did the same thing with Avonte last year. I had Avonte starting out as nickel, and then eventually he moved back to safety. Right. But we'll see how they add people. But right now, I'm looking at nickel.
Right. It's the bigger hole right now, right? They have capable bodies at safety. We don't know, obviously, the health of Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, but Thomas Harper is there. I think they trust him like him. Dan Jackson is there. Lauren Strickland is there.
Yeah, and if they decide to put Rakestraw at nickel and they're like, hey, this is going to be it, then he's going to be a safety. You know what I mean? Sure. Like it, or at least he'll challenge Rakestraw, but probably also at safety.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is this feels like a, hey, Rakestraw, get your butt in gear, because we got a guy that has actually played this position for a year and a half. Go beat him. And
yeah.
I like you. I hope they bring Avonte Maddox back. I wouldn't even like this. I think it was Brett who suggested maybe this is more even of a Daniel Thomas replacement.
Yeah, because he's good on special teams, right? Because Izien's a good special teamer. But I'm more Avonte because I think defensive skill set that he has.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's fit in one more because we're going to try to get a bunch of questions here, and then we'll take a break here. From Motor City Rush on Twitter asks, were some of the veterans who left because of cost or just a desired youth movement? Anzalone, Raymond Lopez. I don't understand the cap, but some of those contracts seem very reasonable.
Yeah,
so
I think it's
both.
Bit about
this. Yeah,
I think it's both. Youth movement is certainly a factor. I tweeted that out yesterday as a response to somebody. Yeah, and a bunch of other people just started retweeting that response, and I was like, uh-oh, I hope I didn't phone in the response there. I wasn't as thorough as I would be if it was a initial tweet, but I certainly think youth movement was a big factor, but I also think they put a price tag on those guys and said, look, we want to get younger. So if we're going to take this veteran, he's going to make this much. Right. And then they sought out free agent options that were better. Yeah.
I think you look at some of these deals and I don't think there was ever a chance the Lions were going to pay a meek $16 million over 2 years, $8 million a year. It's tough to fit that in the cap, and it's an aging player, and it's a guy who didn't play his best football last year. Same with Anzalone. Anzalone was on the wall, in training camp that he wasn't going to be back another year. So that one wasn't surprising. Same with Roy Lopez. The Lions got him in an incredible value last year, but he got he got over $5 million a year this year. That's
big raise.
The big raise. The other ones I think you can make arguments for, like Khalif, could you have paid one for $3.5 million? Yeah, probably, but he was also coming off a year that probably wasn't his best. And he's 32, and so some of that, things that make him special is speed. it's going to decline. And I do kind of believe in that. This is something that I think the Packers always used to do really well, especially on their offensive line, is it's better to cut a guy 1 year too early than 1 year too late, right? Al-Qadin, I think, is the big one where Lions fit. Like that felt like the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people yesterday, because it's 1 year up to $6 million. So we don't have the full contract terms of that, but anytime it's up to $6 million, it's probably more like 5 or 4.5. And you see a guy with 11 sacks last year, and you're like, why can't you make that happen? And I don't have a great answer for that, other than the fact that we know the Lions like a run defender at their edge, and he was not that.
Right. And they didn't use him like that. Like, they used him as a pass rusher only. And this is this draft class gets a lot of, gets a lot of people discounting it for being weak. But it's really only weak in the amount of blue chip players that it has. There's actually a really good depth of players that can start, and there's actually a really good depth of players that are pass rushing specialists that I think you can find on day 3. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Lions grab one of those guys on day 3.
Sure.
Take him, Hassanin, and like I said, a veteran run defender like Cam Jordan, and try and make it hodgepodge with that.
Yeah.
I mean, people aren't going to like it, but
yeah, I'm not going to like it either, because I just feel like you need a backup plan. You can't like we had a long debate about this with Miko about offensive tackles. Like you need a startable option, or you need in the case of defensive end here, like your startable option might be Cam Jordan, but you also need a startable, capable pass rusher type. Well, I don't know if the Lions can find that guy at less than $5 million a year that they could have gotten Al-Qadin Muhammad at.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, with this draft class, if they decide, I could see them signing a Cam Jordan, drafting a defensive edge in the 2nd round, and then adding a specific pass rushing guy still on day 3 is what I'm saying. I'm saying double dip on the edge in the draft, because or maybe they try and get another veteran guy in free agent. But in my mind, the Al-Qadin role is something that I believe they're targeting in the draft, and they still need an edge. Right. So like that still means top 50 potentially, but I do think pass rusher on day 3, even regardless of what you do, otherwise it makes a lot of sense.
Sure. And I guess just my point is that like they need to cover that need anyways.
No, I agree.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the one spot they really haven't covered it with a guy.
Yes.
Right?
With two, with tackle, to me they need 2. They need a starting capable guy, and then they need a situational guy. Yes. And then you can go into the draft and add maybe a guy that is more situational on day 3. I just you have to make sure that's covered. Just in case your guys are there.
I do 100% agree with what you're saying, because they have covered themselves everywhere but edge with capable guys. It's just, can you get a starting nickel in the draft? Can you get a starting will in the draft? Can you get a starting edge? Can you get a tackle? Like you're hoping to hit in a lot of areas, and they've given themselves the flexibility to not be married to having to take one spot, even though I do think offensive tackle in the 1st round is probably, you can write that in pen.
As locked in as it's ever been under this regime.
Yeah. But like Borum is an upgrade over Skipper, right? In my opinion.
Yes.
And we were talking about got your backup there. Go ahead.
With Borum, I don't want to overreact to like placeholder things on Over the Cap, but they do list they on the front page they list Larry Borum as 1 year $5 million with $4.9 million guaranteed. Now they don't, when you click on it though, there's no actual contract terms. So like maybe this is a placeholder, but if they're giving Larry Borum 4.9 guaranteed, that to me is the most questionable move they've made so far.
Well, we'll see. You know what I mean? Like I get what you're saying. At the same time, I've been begging for an OT3 for about a decade. So,
like for them cutting corners like everywhere else on this roster,
except for there,
spend it at $5 million on a potential backup tackle. That is wild to me.
Yeah, yeah, and it does raised the question: are they looking at him as a starter? Maybe, and
Right. But again,
I'm hoping not.
I'm trying not to overreact to non-complete contract terms. But
Right.
if those numbers are right,
100%.
it raises several.
Yeah, I do think
questions.
that's something that we got to make sure not to buy into until we see the actual contract.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, more of your questions about Lions free agency. We'll touch a little bit on the draft and talk a whole lot of Brad Holmes when we come back here on the Late Week Mailbag. We'll be right back. All right, we are on break time, which means you guys have been pouring in a whole bunch of questions and a lot of good ones. I don't remember any of them, so if you have continued questions, you can throw them in the chat here. Go ahead.
Colorado Lions tried to bait you and said, have you heard anything about Seymour Butt from the Rams, linebacker Seymour Butt? And I'm thinking, Colorado Lions must have seen the Aaron Wilson clip that I threw in Slack.
I heard about it. I still haven't clicked on it, but I saw that Aaron Wilson got baited by...
Yeah, someone was like, "What do you think about this guy?" Yeah, no, it was a real guy, but he's like he's not anybody. And they were like, "What do you think about this guy?" In the first, do you think he fits? And Aaron Wilson was like, "Yeah, I think he fits probably pretty good, no problem." Like, it was a guy he wasn't familiar with, but he was trying to like fake it online just to kind of like cover. It's a good lesson to when you don't know something, just to be like,
just admit it.
Don't know.
Just say you don't know.
I don't know. I don't know about that guy yet. I have to look into him. But when someone throws you something that like, where they're expecting you to know and you're blanking, like I get the urge to be like, what do I know?
But it's why when the Drew Petzing news dropped in the middle of the podcast, I had to just be like, listen, I'm sorry, I don't know the guy. I don't know anything about him. And
do you remember when?
Go ahead.
Do you remember when I was when I had a question dropped on me recently that I told you I had a full-on panic attack about? Where it was like, "Hey, do you know about this extension?" And I was like, "What?"
Oh, right.
And it hadn't happened, but they were talking as if it did, and it threw me off.
That was Jared Goff, right? Like someone asked you about a Jared Goff extension.
When, yes, and when, it had not happened.
The news was just talking about what a restructure would be like. It hadn't happened, but people were talking about it that day. And either this host either assumed that a restructure happened or was asking you about a restructure, but called it an extension and sent you into panic.
Completely threw me off, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a mess! Like,
all right, that can be scary.
Yeah, very.
Live radio is hard sometimes because. Unlike these or unlike the POD cast, no outline. We're not given questions ahead of time. What we could be asked is, and it's why like right now is my least favorite time to do radio, because they're asking me about like free agents, guys that I haven't really done a ton of research on. They're asking me about the draft, and players that I like when I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of learning those, and so I could be on the radio and like, oh, good. Like they're just going to ask me about the first round. I know the first round target types guys. And then they'll be like, who's a day 3 running back that, and I'm just like, let me pull up Eric Sport. Let me pull up Eric Sport. Oh my God.
I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
And I was on with Bellino and he asked me the same question.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was right after the Montgomery trade. And I was like, I completely like it blanked. Like I pulled up my board because I was like, I don't even know like who is going to be a guy who can do all the things that Montgomery does. And I'm like, I don't think any of them can, but like I had to think about, and I ended up like stumbling and throwing like 5 different names out there. I'm like, oh, these guys are interesting to me, like, because like, I just wasn't like, I'm still learning about this class, even though I feel like running back is one I have a good handle on, and it's still hard.
It's hard. It's very hard. And anytime, like, I just, the one that gets me every time is like, who's a sleeper? Who's a sleeper in this year's draft? I'm like,
that's the hardest question. The hardest question in the entire world is tell me who's a sleeper.
Right.
And the reason is because if I think they're good enough to that I'm going to give them I'm going to give them a higher grade, even
Yeah.
if the only way I can determine if they're a sleeper is if like I'm way higher on them than like the average consensus.
Right.
And that's a hard guy to find because like right now I'm kind of like in my own little
Yeah.
cave. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so like right now I'm just looking at guys that I'm like, oh, this is a draftable guy. This is a draftable guy. This is a draftable guy. So like that, none of them look like sleepers
Yeah.
to me
Right.
at all. They don't.
Right.
None of them look like it.
And
Even though they
a lot of
might
our
be, right?
preliminary research, especially at this point, is based on other people's opinions, right? Like they're telling us the
Well,
guys to look at, right? And so we're looking at those players, and if we're looking at those players, they're not sleepers because all these guys are talking about them.
I
You have
I did a
little bit of
lot of
that.
film study going
Yeah.
into the combine, so I feel a lot more comfortable with
Yeah.
where I'm at. But there's still guys that I
Yeah.
haven't looked at fully. There's guys that I have that I want to go back and look at again, but I have to wait for free agency to calm down before I
Yeah.
can do that, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys that stood out at the combine where I was like, "Oh, I need to look at this guy again because I had him as a day 3, and other people are saying, oh, maybe it's a day 2, and he athletically the profile on him was like fantastic, and I'm like, all right, well, I must have missed something."
Yeah.
And so I got to go back and look at those guys still. But that's the hard part about about not just being a draft only analyst,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If we were draft only, I wouldn't be busy writing all these free agent profiles and stuff like that, right? Like I'd
Right.
be rewatching combine stuff and doing re-rankings, but I got to put a pin on that
Yeah.
for free agency and vacations and stuff like that. And so, I'll get back to it in a little bit and get some deeper reevals as we go.
Continue to make me feel guilty. Swag King on YouTube asked Eric's thoughts on Cade Mays versus Glasgow. I think this is in response to me saying I think it's more of a lateral move than anything.
Here's the big difference.
Yeah.
I've always said this about Glasgow. Glasgow is a very intelligent technician, but he's always been this athletic technician with a lot of experience and a very smart guy.
Yep.
Mays is an absolute bruiser.
Right.
Who likes to bury people and fits in stylistically with what you would normally see at guard. You've now incorporated that amongst all 3 of your interior guys.
Sure.
So from a stylistic standpoint, I think he is
Very
an
different.
improvement.
Okay.
I think he's an improvement stylistically.
Okay.
But from a experience standpoint, that's where I'm concerned. That's where I want to see him. I want to see his intelligence, his adaptability, his ability to do like those things that Graham could do from the pivot that I haven't seen out of Cade other than just what I've watched on film. So it's hard to say if one's better than another because I think Graham's better in the experience intelligence, Cade's better in the stylistic fit in the bullying.
That's fair. And I think your concerns line up with mine there as well, because to me, it's not just that he's young. It's that now that entire interior offensive line is very young.
Yeah, but they're all mean and physical.
True.
Right? And they all like to move ahead. And so
downhill.
It really meshes well from a stylistic standpoint.
Yeah. Well, there was another... Clinton Reed asks, what kind of grade would you give the Lions organization up to this point in the offseason?
I mean, that's unfair because it's not over, right?
That's like incomplete. Is that?
I mean, look, it's like taking a math test, and 10 minutes into the math test, they're like, "What grade do you have so far?"
You know what I mean? Rip it out of their hands and be like, "Oh, you're only halfway done. Sorry." No,
let's see. So far, you're getting a D. So let's see now I'll give it back to you and let you finish it. It's hard. That's kind of what we talked about at the top.
There's admittedly a handful of things I don't like. I don't like the way that they handled the Taylor Decker situation, and I don't like where that's left them at tackle. I don't love all of the guys they've let walk. I understand most of them, but like, again, Al-Qadin is one that seems affordable to me. Grant Stewart kind of as well, although 2 years up to $5 million. I mean, Grant Stewart's not a guy that I'm going to cry about losing, but I don't know. It's hard. it's hard to judge, like you said, it's hard to judge things where things are at. I certainly think the way things went south with David Montgomery is extremely unfortunate, and largely the Lions' fault, right? Like with the way, but that was almost a mistake in the regular season, not in the off season, right? I'm sure they did all they could to mend that fence, and honestly, because the trade terms were so good, it helps mitigate some of that. But
yeah,
I don't know. There's nothing they've done so far that has been like, wow, they hit that out of the park. There's been a lot of like singles. If we're gonna make more baseball references, like I do like the Izien signing. I can understand the Cade Mays one. I'm not thrilled about it, but that's I guess a single to me. It's okay. You did the bare minimum at center to be at an acceptable level.
You did what you took what was there, right?
Yeah,
like they had to make a move. They were aggressive in making that move. I get it.
Any chance Taylor Decker resigns on a 1-year deal? I don't live in absolutes, so I'm not gonna say 100% no, but I'm probably in the high 90s. No.
I would say no as well, but I haven't. I won't lie. I have thought about it.
Sure,
like testing out there and being like, this isn't what I thought. Let's unring that bell.
I was talking to some of the Lions media yesterday when I was at Allen Park, and so some are wondering if he is going to, like, out of pride, accept a deal anything less than I think it was $14.9 million salary he was due to make. Would he be willing to take anything less of that? And
I think look at what Anzalone. It being.
Oh, there we go.
What? Oh,
you skipped for a second. You're good now.
I was gonna say, like, sometimes these veterans, they look at the market and they're like, "Hey, these guys are getting this in the market."
Yeah.
Anzalone was like, "I'm making 10 million. I think I should be. Look at the linebacker market. I think I should be making competitive." He was talking like 12 to 14 million, and then that's what he gets over 2 years. Like, I think he misjudged the market for what it would be, and I wonder if Taylor is kind of doing the same thing.
Right. The question though is, would he tuck his tail between his legs and come back, or would he just be like, I guess I'm retired again?
I don't know. I think he might retire if he doesn't get the price he wants. Yeah. Honestly.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it would make sense with all the shit he has to put himself through to play. If he's not getting what he thinks he's worth,
then it's not worth it for him. Yeah.
Right. It's just, it's an unfortunate look for someone who, like, put together this big Instagram post of "I'm back."
Sure.
And then a month later, he's like, "No, I'm not."
The hard part about if he wanted to return to the Lions, and why I'm in the boat with you that I don't think it's going to happen, is the Lions are already on the hook for him for $9.4 million.
Right.
For him to come back, they're not going to want to give him a contract that is going to be more than what he was making when they asked him to reportedly take a pay cut. So, like, is he going to come back would he come back for 10 million, 1 year, 10 million? Like, and then he'd be making less. The Lions would be around where they wanted to be. And then, but from a cap perspective, like, they'd be about where they wanted to be, I would estimate. But he would be making significantly less by doing that because of the way that this route went. I think it's more beneficial for him to try and get a little bit more money somewhere else, or just say, all right, that's about it. Yeah.
All right. Let me get through some alerts, and then we'll answer more questions from our live audience here. So you can keep sending in questions if you want. If you want to send your questions in with resubs or super chats, we'll get to those first.
There was a question about Cade Mays that I saw.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second here. G Money, thank you for the 36 months subscribed on Twitch. Appreciate you. Duckline, 36 months as well. 3 years on the dot for both y'all. Appreciate you hanging around. Rob Mendyka, thank you for the 31 months. Says ready to play Edge. Hey, there you go. What kind of contract, Rob? What are we talking? Void years? How much guarantee do you need? We can offer vet minimum. Slim Quick 45 months subscribed on Twitch says Brad is rebuilding the defensive end room. That's what everyone wanted. I think tearing down is probably the better term. Very little, Rob. Okay. Well, have your people talk to my people. I don't. I'll get Big Dog on the line. Big Dog Drew Petzing. I don't know why he would know anything about the defensive end room. Lupe Lions, $5 super chat says, do you think Brad is hoping to get more comp picks from losing all the players we have? This way we get more picks to play with. No. We had this question. I have this. Might as well just tackle it now. So Over the Cap tracks compensatory pick projections while free agency is happening. And all of the Lions' losses combined with all of their ads so far add up to a 6th-round pick. That's it so far. That's it. Now, some contract terms aren't out yet. You know, the Grant Stewart one, the Al-Qadim Muhammad one, those could change the formula a little bit. But right now, Alex Anzalone's contract is essentially getting canceled out by Cade Mays. Roy Lopez's contract is basically getting knocked out by Larry Borum. But again, like that's tentative based on, you know, incomplete terms for Borum. And so Amik Robertson is the only one right now that the Lions are projected to get a return from, a 6th-rounder, because Kyle Allen's is too small, Khalif Raymond's is too small, and Grant Stewart and Al-Qadim's aren't out yet. So I really think in general teams don't play the comp pick game. It's a nice little bonus, but the Lions will probably get a comp pick or two out of this free agent class. But again, like if they go out there and sign Cameron Jordan, maybe they won't. All right. Mike Williams on YouTube, thanks for subscribing. Guys named 18 months subscribed on Twitch says, I'm reading this knowing it's a joke. Says Aaron Wilson, NFL on X. Sources say Lions are hosting former Titans Ben Dover, tight end, for a free agent visit. Nice try. Liberator, 10 months subscribed on Twitch, says, my only regret is that I wished Brad utilized more mid-priced solid talent to create a steadier foundation with draft talent. Yeah, that is what they're missing. It does feel like it feels like that was a strategy a little bit before. It's like, hey, let's get some of these mid guys that do create a stronger foundation. Now it feels like they're like, no, we're going young. Those guys are nice to have, but we want young and hungry and cheap. And that's, like you said, it's a dangerous strategy. It's a thin line to walk. But it's clearly, maybe not clearly because we don't have the full picture yet, but it certainly feels like that's where they're headed with this. Light Horse, thank you for the 39 months. Subscribe on Twitch, says it's nattering nabobs of negativity time in Detroit. Let's hope that Holmes knows what he's doing. What is that? Is that a reference to something? Nattering nabobs? What's that? I like the term, whatever that is.
It's clever. That's what it is.
Is nabobs a word?
I don't recognize it, but sure.
Nattering nabobs of negativism is an alliterative insult coined by speechwriter William Safire during Spiro Agnew's vice presidency.
I'll tell you what. You learn something new every day.
Apparently.
Right? You do.
Giving us the history lesson, Light Horse. I appreciate that.
I was not familiar with that one.
I've never heard the term nabobs. Am I even saying it right?
Nabob.
Nabobs, apparently. Nattering nabobs.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to use it properly, but I dig it.
Henche, 5 months subscribed to the channel, says, sorry if this has been answered. What do you feel is the solution to the secondary? Very few cornerbacks and Branch Kirby injured.
A lot of guys who can do a lot of things. That's kind of where I'm looking at it right now, right? Because they have more safeties than like I think people recognize, right? Like you've got
bodies.
Yeah,
It's
they've got
just
bodies.
one, we don't know how healthy they are.
Right, that's part
like,
of it.
Yeah, I mean, like even a guy like Khalil Dorsey is a guy that has come in and been okay. And he's still around.
Right. They have 12 defensive backs rostered right now. Like that's not bad. Like they're gonna add more, right?
It's just we don't know how the pieces are put together right now and who's where on the depth chart and who's healthy and who's going to get arrested and who's not.
Oh, right. Well, hopefully we know that soon.
Hopefully. Yeah.
DiCaprio Boodle. That's another made up name.
That like when the Lions have players like that, it really makes me want to bring back the name bracket. I mean, even Juice Scruggs, man, I'm just like, that's a 1 seed. That's a 1 seed. D Parente, 33 months on Twitch, says logging on to Twitch just to send my Bezos bucks. Appreciate that. Nice. The Lobster Zone, thank you for following on Twitch. Nolvar, thank you for following on Twitch. And DC Smothers, £2 super chat on YouTube, says, is DJ Reader worth what Lopez got in Arizona? Would you sign DJ Reader to a, what was it, 2 year, 8.5, or wait, 10.5, I think is what.
I don't think the Lions will.
No, probably not.
I don't think the Lions would.
It was originally reported as an allowed half deal, but I believe Roy's ended up being a 2 years 10.
Yeah. I look, I'm not saying DJ Reader's not worth it. I'm saying I don't think the Lions would do it.
Would they do 1 year, 5.5? Or 5.75, I guess is half of that. No.
I don't think they go above 4.
5.25.
I don't think they go above 4.
I don't think
he's a backup.
I don't think he would take that either.
I don't think he'd want to, but if his market is thin, he might end up like taking that.
Just to go from 11.4 million to 4 million.
Dude, you've seen a decline in production. He's getting up there in age, and he's a backup now. Yeah. Right? Like, and I don't think anybody's viewing him as a starter, unfortunately.
I swear, if the Lions sign Marcus Davenport, even I am going to get mad. And I don't get mad at the offseason.
Dude, in the contract that he had last year was like pennies. Compared, right?
It is, and that's totally what he would get, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't even want it that anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
okay, so I had some discussions because one of the things that we were talking about last week or early this week is the cut of Josh Paschal. Yeah. And the question being, why would you bother cutting him when, none of his money's guaranteed? Why wouldn't you just throw him out there in training camp and just see what happens?
No confidence. No confidence in him.
I asked around, and the answer I got is not specific to Josh Paschal, but it makes a lot of sense in Josh Paschal's case. There comes a point in a player's injury history where you have so little trust in that player that you are not willing to risk that salary in case they get injured and they go on IR and you have to pay the entire thing.
Yeah.
And so if I had to guess, that's where they're at with Josh Paschal. He didn't, to be clear, he did not get released with a failed physical, but that is the risk. That is the risk that they were almost certainly unwilling to take. It wasn't, it also might just be like they don't like him as a player, so why bother? But that is, even though it's non-guaranteed money, if you get hurt in training camp and it's a season-ending injury, or even if it's not,
he got hurt last summer before training camp.
Yes.
right?
And the Lions,
like his was an NFI.
right? And I don't know. Based on the CBA that I read, he may not have even gotten paid last year.
Right.
But if it's if it's PUP or if it's IR, you have to pay that salary. That hits the salary cap, and so that is my best guess as to why they were just kind of done with Pascal. And it's something I hadn't considered, but makes a ton of sense.
Outside of Pascal's cancer, he didn't really have an injury history, guys. Like the injury stuff all came after he got to the NFL. It wasn't like he had this long injury history. Like he obviously had the cancer scare, but that's obviously not his fault.
Right. Sack the Pack, 7 months subscribed on Twitch. Mr. Aki or Mraki, $5 super chat on YouTube says, "What are the odds Kirby never plays another snap in the NFL?" Dear Lord. I mean,
I hope low.
I don't. It's very hard for us to sit here and speculate when we don't have a diagnosis. Like obviously the conversations around Kirby have not been positive. When the team talks about it, it's not very optimistic. But they've also never given an indication that like his career's over, right?
Right. Look, I'm not a doctor. And even if I was a doctor, the doctors that are just, watching from afar, they don't know either. Like, unless you are in Allen Park, they're the only ones that know.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, right? Like, we don't know. The people who, are educated in this field without examining him don't know. And so, look, I mean, what's the guy who used to work for Washington that Dave interviewed, the doc?
Chow.
Yeah, Chow. Like was in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? And even he said when he was talking to Dave, I don't know. This is my guess, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so I'm not even as versed as him in this type of thing. So it's impossible for us to know. The only ones who know are inside the building. Unfortunately, that's the best answer.
Right. And I mean, you can, if you want to try to infer, you can certainly infer from their not negative language, but certainly like enigmatic, not extremely positive update. At one point, Dan Campbell says, "I don't know if this is something you can ever get rid of. You just manage." None of that sounds great. And certainly could, possibly mean he doesn't play another snap in the NFL, but it's hard for us to put a percentage on that when there's just so much unknown.
I look, based on, I've literally talked to my doctor who asked me about it. Yeah. And I was like, this is what they're saying. And he was like, yeah, it doesn't sound great, but that doesn't mean the end of the world. Like, he's like, but it certainly doesn't sound great, like for his career.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's the impression that we're getting. You know what I mean? But again, we don't know. And even he admitted, like, I literally was at my doctor's office yesterday and he asked me about Kirby. He asked me about all these guys. And I was like,
should I be asking you?
No, but I go to the doctor for a physical and like 50% of the conversation is about the Lions.
Yeah.
It's funny. But I said, this is what they're saying. And he said, yeah, doesn't sound great. He's like, but he's like, I wouldn't know unless I saw him. So I don't know what else to say.
Hey, got some good news. I want a coffee.
Nice.
I rolled up the rim to win, and I want a coffee.
You should. I think those expire in the next. You have to use them within 5 days, though. So
is that true,
dude? It's another vacation joke.
You're getting muted. I don't like you. $9.99 super chat from Xanders. Appreciate that. Asks, some of the teams that stay contenders move on from a star to get a first round pick and free cap space. Think of the Chiefs and Tyreek. Is there one player on the Lions that you could see that happening with? I'll tell you, a year ago,
Not this year, but
a
go
year
ahead.
ago, the answer was Jameson Williams,
Sure.
and
And
then
look,
they extended him to much to my surprise.
and Mike, if you're Mike Tannenbaum, it's still Jameson Williams. But I don't think this year. I don't
Yeah,
think this year.
I oh, I mean, it would have to be one of those guys from the 2023 draft class, and it's not. It's certainly
It'd
not
be
Jack Campbell. It's
Yeah,
definitely not
it
Jameer
would be like
Gibbs.
it would be like a Sam Laporta type of thing.
Sam Laporte is
But
the
with Sam
closest.
having a back injury, look,
Yeah,
they're not doing. I don't think they're doing that. Like in my opinion, they wouldn't. They're not doing that.
yeah,
But like, yeah, the problem that's the issues. The you've got injuries to both him and Branch,
right.
and and Kirby. So it's
Yeah,
like I don't know. I don't think they're in a spot.
yeah. I mean, they kind of did it with Hawkinson, right?
Sure,
It was
different.
it's that like you can't pay everybody. Get
Took a
what
pay
you
cut
can.
to stay in Minnesota this
He
year.
did. He
Hmm.
did. Uh, and so I don't like Aleem, I guess, but like I feel like I don't think that contract is very tradable. And he's certainly not. I mean, you'd be selling
I don't know
low,
if you get a
right?
third for him. Yeah, I don't know if you get a first for him. I don't
No,
think, in
I
my
don't think
opinion.
so. So it's tough. I get that philosophy, and just in some cases that is something that I think at some point Brad Holmes is going to have to consider. I just don't know if the 2023 draft class is that, because the guys they're guys that they very clearly aren't going to move on from, and the guys that they could potentially move are not in good spots. Like with Sam, I don't know how many teams are going to be eager to get a guy off of back surgery, and Branch, who is not one of those guys that I think they'd trade anyways, is coming off an Achilles. So I don't know. Okay, we're caught up.
Dan Passy asked a question.
I see a thumbs up.
Which tight end in free agency would you look for, like the Lions assign? So I pulled up PFF's list real fast.
Yep.
So Dallas Goedert is their best available free agent. He's over 31.
Yep.
Jonnu Smith over 30. Njoku about to be 30. Darren Waller 33. Mercedes Lewis 41. My goodness. Mo Alley Cox 32. Higbee 33. Ertz 35. Taysom Hill 35.
That's
Tyler
not tight end.
Conklin 30.
Yeah.
Harrison Bryant 28. So according to PFF and the Lions strategy, it would be Harrison Bryant.
Is Bellinger still out there?
No, he went out early. Got a big contract to go
Did he really?
to Atlanta, I think, or something. A decent
He went
contract.
to the Titans, you liar.
Oh yeah,
Didn't
no,
know
that's what I
Bellinger.
meant. He followed Dable. That's what I meant. I was thinking Dable.
Oh.
That's what he did. He followed. I knew he yeah. So,
What do you get? Oh, he did get a 3-year,
Yeah.
21 million. Dear Lord, I thought he was going to come way cheaper than that.
yeah, so did I. So look, if we take the strategy that okay, they're only going to sign a over 30-year-old if it comes cheap. So then let's now look at the list. Who comes cheap? Goddard, Smith, Waller, and Njoku. Those guys aren't going to come cheap. So Mercedes Lewis, they're not going to look at.
Hooper's gone
So
too.
we're talking about Hooper went too. That was disappointing to me. We're talking about like Tyler Higbee. Wasn't Higbee the one that Kirby blew out his knee? Like, would he come? I don't think he would come to Detroit.
Do you
right?
think that would prevent him from coming to Detroit?
I don't know, on a cheap deal? They've already gone down to Zach Ertz train, which means the next
Sort of.
two logical guys are Taysom Hill and Tyler Conklin. Those are the names that I would keep an eye on.
Conklin was on my best fits list. There's a little bit of
Hill-
Petting tie-in, right? Back to
Yes.
his Vikings days.
With Conklin, yes, and
Yeah.
with Hill, the obvious tie to Dan.
Right.
And so Hill and Conklin
Taysom Hill.
are the only guys over 30 that I think would sign for near vet minimum or vet minimums, which is, I think, what the Lions would be willing to take. So Dan, write down Taysom Hill and Tyler Conklin.
There you go. Okay. You got more? Should we go back to the show here? Probably, maybe.
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna get back to the show. If you guys have more questions, you can hold on to them. We'll have a little bit of time at the end, but I do eventually have a flight to catch today. Yeah. All right. Let's get back to the normal screen. Okay. Where did we leave off?
We were at Motor City Rush.
Jarrett? I think Jarrett. We did Motor City Rush, right?
We just did Motor City Rush. Yeah, that was the last
one. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We didn't we're gonna get to 9 questions.
It ain't happening. Sorry, guys.
All right. Welcome back to the late week mailbag, where we answer your very angry Detroit Lions questions. Nah, just kidding. I mean, listen, you're welcome to be upset right now, and in a lot of ways, I don't think anyone is happy with how free agency has played out yet. But yet being the key word here. Let's go next to Jarrett Hoog on Twitter. Asks, are you concerned about this regime's defensive philosophy? From drafting to personnel to scheme, this defense hasn't been good during the Holmes Campbell era.
It's been good in spurts, and injuries have certainly derailed it. Like
Sure.
early in the during the Aaron Glenn days, they searched for like the first 3 years to try and find the right system that fit the players that they had. And they certainly weren't that good those first 3 years. And then in year 4, we started to see them turn around, and things started to work a little bit better. And I believe they were doing okay under Shep before kind of got hit by the injury bug. So they have been good in spurts. They have not been able to sustain that for a variety of reasons. I also think, so last year I was encouraged by what I saw, but also, Shep's inexperience showed during a couple games. The holes in the philosophy that they have showed during a couple of games. The injuries certainly played a big factor down the stretch. So, I get that this defensive. So I do think they've been good, but from a defensive strategy standpoint, it does certainly go against the grain of a modern defense, and that's where I totally understand the frustration, because you look at teams like Denver and Houston who are just pass rushing in waves, Seattle, right? Obviously. Yep. And you see those teams in the playoffs and you see the benefit of it. And the Lions have taken almost an opposite approach, where they've been more built to stop the run, multiple linebackers, try and be adaptable, and it's not as flashy. And so I get the desire to want something more. I'm in that same boat. I get that, the appeal. So am I concerned? No, because I do think that there's an established, like the system they're in is established and it shows it can work. But I am concerned about the stability of it and some of the issues that they've had. But I do think it can be a good defense if things, if they don't run into those obstacles.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that are true at once. It is true that the Lions have been historically injured on defense in 2 consecutive years. As in the last 25 years, adjusted games lost, which is my favorite kind of measure of injuries that FTN Fantasy does, based on games lost, prioritizing starters, depth players. Like it's a scaled system where if your starters are injured, it counts more against you. Literally in the past 25 years, those 2 teams have been amongst the 12 most injured defenses in the past 25 years of every team, including the second most injured defense of all time last year. Oh, not all time, past 25 years. But it is also true that the Lions have had some questionable strategies, both in terms of the scheme and in terms of roster building, in terms of not getting not prioritizing pure pass rush guys, right? James Houston was on the roster, was a pure pass rush guy, and they're like, that's not enough for us. Goodbye. The schematic stuff.
There were other factors, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All of the base defense that they played last year. And on one hand, it felt maybe it was actually ahead of its time. It's like, okay, all these teams are doing 12 and 13 personnel stuff. Like, that seems like a good strategy against 12 and 13 personnel. If you can do everything in base, that makes you a pretty dangerous team. Turns out they couldn't do everything in base. Now, is that a strategy they're going to hold on to? I don't think necessarily. I think if they don't have the linebackers that they think that they can run base defense in, then maybe they run more nickel and look a little bit more like some of the other teams. The heavy man coverage, like there are a lot of things that made the Lions unique, but not necessarily good. And so I think it's okay to admit that like the Lions defense probably was better than they looked in the past 2 years because of injuries, but also maybe they didn't do themselves favors by some of the things they were doing with the personnel that they had.
If you want to get into the weeds of this defense and where the benefits are, Cody Alexander, who has a blog called Match Quarters, I believe it's on a Substack. He's written books on defense. Like he's got like 6 or 7 pretty good books out there on defense. He does videos, and he did a video of why the Lions defense. He's done a couple this past season on Shep. But he did some really, it's very detail oriented, right? So, but if you want to get into the weeds of where this defense succeeds, search Cody Alexander Lions defense. I bet you'll come up with some videos that are pretty good.
There you go. I love that. You gave them homework. You gave the people some homework to do. And listen, like it's also easy to like start hammering the defense right now when they've clearly got like they've only added one defensive piece and lost like 5. It is that is certainly concerning right now, right? It's why in your winners losers piece, Kelvin Shepard was amongst the losers because his job is certainly getting harder by the minute. But I think there's a hope and an expectation that in the next week here we're going to see some defensive additions and hopefully, if not upgrades, at least getting back to the talent level where they were at.
Let's hope.
All right, next question here comes from Josh Kerr's Cybertruck. Says, which do you think is more likely in round 1? Brad trades up to get his guy, or Brad trades back since edge and offensive tackle are both somewhat deep in this draft class?
I've kind of gone both ways on this.
Yep.
Because the way that they're seem to be approaching the offseason, it almost feels like he's in a trade back, acquire more picks scenario to get more picks to add more youth. At the same time, he's normally inclined to be aggressive and go up to get his guy, right? So like I don't know which way he would go in this direction because his history and current actions seem to be in different camps right now. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Plus the guy that I believe that they're targeting, which is Clemson's Blake Miller, I think they would just stick and pick at 17 and they could get him. But if you look at the national analysts, there's a suggestion that they could trade back and still maybe get him. I don't know if Brad would risk it with the importance of this, right, of getting an offensive tackle, in my opinion. So I'm kind of I think he's going to stick and pick Blake Miller at 17. That's my guess today.
I'm of the belief, especially if the tackle situation remains as it is today and they don't add anyone else to compete for a starting job, that position becomes so important in the draft that I just don't think Brad would trade down. Even if I think it's the right move. He's not the type of GM to sit patiently on his hands, especially if it's something that's going to be as pressing of a need, because one, he doesn't like to be in that position to begin with, right? He doesn't like to be, hey, we need this in the draft. And for him to not only be in that position, but have some, like, there are going to be offensive tackle options available for him at 17.
Yeah, but the best, yes, but not much further past 17.
Right.
Right. That's where it gets tricky.
Yes. And so I'm more of the belief that like if one of those top 2 guys is still there at like 13 or 14, he might just be like, you know what? Who needs that Dave Montgomery 4th? Who needs next year's 3rd?
I think with the depth of this tackle class, okay, you've got a couple guys at the top who are right tackles, but some teams might view them as guards, and Mani Noah and Fanu, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got guys like Freeling, who's more of a pure tackle, guys like Blake Miller, who's more of a pure tackle, and then people are going to want to throw Proctor into that mix as well, who some are projecting him to be a guard as well. And then Lomu, I think you can probably Lomu from Utah, you can throw him in the mix probably as well. And Ihanachour is probably going to be 7. Those guys, all 7, could end up going in the first round. But there's a big difference between like Blake Miller and Ihanachour, right? And if you trade back from 17, where you could probably get Blake Miller, and you end up getting an extra, 4th round pick or 3rd round pick, but you end up getting Ihanachour instead of Blake Miller, I don't know if Brad would view that as worth it. You know what I mean? Maybe he will. We'll see. But I just look at the top of this class, or if Fanu falls and Freeling rises, does that change the calculus on when Miller might go? And so, I really think Miller's the guy who is going to be a lot higher on draft boards than what he's getting attention in the media right now. And I do think there's a big gap between him and Ihanachour. I think Miller's kind of ready to go right out the gate. And Ihanachour is a guy who you could like and could start, but he's a little rough around the edges.
Someone in our chat mentioned the trade down for Gibbs, and the only my rebuttal to that would be like that was an adjustment to plan A. Yeah. In my opinion. It was Devin Witherspoon, he's not there. Well, plan B is to do something else. Right now, plan A in this upcoming draft, as their roster stands currently, has to be go get an offensive tackle with a 1st round pick.
It's the way it looks right now, right? It absolutely looks that
incomplete
that way
picture,
right now.
But that's just how it looks now. All right, Steve H with the next question says, one of our Pride Detroit Direct subscribers, so shout out to Steve H for supporting us, says, I keep telling myself that I hope the Lions draft an offensive tackle and an edge in the 1st and 2nd rounds as positions I want them to fill most with young day 1, day 2 talent. The more I try to educate myself on what's out there, though, the more I wonder, is there a slate of offensive tackles or edge players that you think could be a good pick at 50, assuming a no-brainer doesn't fall that far? Or are you going to end up seeing a safety, linebacker, defensive tackle at that spot that you would otherwise have much higher than offensive tackle or an edge at 50?
I really think the sweet spot for an offensive tackle is going to be the 1st round.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to go into this draft looking for a tackle, needing a tackle, and being willing to take that tackle in the 1st round.
Yeah.
When it gets to the 2nd round, I don't think that there's a tackle that's going to be there that is going to be like ready to start out of the gate. Right. And that's where things get tricky because on the edge there is, at linebacker there is, but not at tackle. And now I don't think, let me clarify. I don't believe taking a tackle in the 1st round would be reaching either. Like, I think the talent will warrant the selection.
Right.
But this is a much deeper edge class. This is a much deeper linebacker class. And it would make sense that those are the 2 spots they might end up focusing on based on how they're constructing their roster right now. You could talk me into, hey, if a safety slides that has a lot of range into that 50 area, that would be worth it, but I don't really envision that happening. If they take a safety, I'm kind of leaning day 3. But my focus right now is that the value of depth in the class plus need plus value for the pick, it's looking like edge or linebacker to me in the 2nd round and offensive tackle in the 1st.
All right, next question here comes from Thomas Stevo, Lions UK NFL on Twitter. Says, do you see Tom Kennedy taking on Khalif's role on offense and special teams? He impressed late last season and brings veteran presence over Lovett.
Well, you've got Kennedy and Lovett that are going to be in the mix, as
Yep.
Thomas has suggested. This is another area where I could see a day 3 pick coming in to
Sure.
compete, right? There's some interesting names that are out there. There are some speedy guys on day 3. There's some gadget guys on day 3. There's some returners on day 3. So there's a collection of them, of these different styles of guys that I believe the Lions would be interested in. Izien from Iowa is, of course, one of the better returners in college football history. He's going to be in this draft. He makes sense. He fits what the Lions do in a lot of ways. Another kick returner is Baron Brown from LSU, established kick returner, punt returner, who I think could kind of step in that area. Very interesting to me. He ran a 4.4 in the 40, but if you look at his miles per hour, he had the second fastest miles per hour in the entire combine. And the reason is because his initial get off, his 10-yard split, slow. It was slow. He has more build up speed, right? So he didn't get out of the gate quick. He had a 1.6210, which is slow, but he ends up running a 4.4 because he has the speed to separate once he gets past that initial wave. And so that's like in a kick returner, you think, okay, he needs a little build up speed, but if he gets in the open, it's going to be hard to catch him. Like, so getting a guy like him, like in the 7th round, 6th round, like there's value in that. And,
Sure.
and you can add him into the mix and let all 3 of them compete.
I don't think either Kennedy or Lovett have proven anything to me that they should be punt returner 1. Kennedy, they threw back there when Khalif was out because he was just a steady hands. Not that explosive as a punt returner. I will give Tom Kennedy all the credit in the world for how he did as a kick returner, right? He, in the 6 games, I think it was, that he played towards the end of the last season, he did a hell of a job. He deserves to be in that competition next year. I am still, and credit to Al for this one, but Greg Dortch, free agent, Cardinals wide receiver. Still out there.
Yep.
Ton of returner experience. Did a pretty good job as a punt returner. Averaged 11.6 yards per punt return last year on 16 attempts. He was also one of their primary kick returners. Had 31 kick returns last year. Averaged 26.2, which is fine. Plus, I think he can give you a little bit in the receiving game. He's had at least 200 yards each of the past 4 seasons, over 283 of those past 4 years. So I think, and obviously the Drew Petzing connection there too. So I think that's a guy to keep an eye out on. He's only 27, so he still fits like the youth movement if that's what you're looking for. To me, it's easy to just be like, oh, just throw in your draft pick. Just throw in a young guy. But to me, Lovett doesn't have any punt return experience. Like, he has 1 punt return in college, and that's it.
Yeah, he's more of a gunner. He's always been a gunner.
Yeah. And listen, I think it was Brad Holmes who said last year, is like, hey, we also see a little bit of potential there as a returner.
Sure.
But it's potential there. Like, that is not a proven process. Like, he
looked okay. He looked okay on kicks.
Right.
But it's the punts that were really,
yes,
contemplated.
And again, I fully expect him to be out there in competition for the role. But to just assume he's going to take it and be as good or even like 70% of Khalif, I think is a huge jump in logic.
Yeah, like what I think people don't often recognize with Khalif is like a legit 4.3 runner. Right. Like legit.
Even at 31, 32 or whatever he is.
Right.
And eventually that's going to fall off.
He's also very quick.
Yeah.
And that combination of quickness and speed is hard to find. Like with Dortch is very quick.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that long speed.
Right.
A guy like Barron, who I just mentioned, or Baron Brown, long speed, doesn't have that quickness, right? Weechin, the Iowa kid, really doesn't have either. Like he doesn't excel in either, but he understands the role in a way that no one else really has. Like he's got like 6 touchdowns
crazy.
as a return guy in the last 2 years. Like, it's unbelievable why people kick to him and how he just manages to sort his way through. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm not ruling out a sixth, seventh round pick
Sure.
that can be a returner. But I like the Dortch idea. Add him to the mix as well. Why not?
Yeah. Brett Y had a very long email and an impassioned email. I'm not going to read the whole thing just because we need to save time here. But the gist of his question is: do you think the lines are approaching the offensive line with enough urgency? And what the heck has happened to the team I love? So he was concerned about the way Decker was handled, the way Glasgow was handled. Losing a bunch of good depth potential starters and filling it with Cade Mays, a relatively inexperienced center, Larry Borum, a guy that probably shouldn't be a starter. I think that at the base of Brett's question is, we heard Dan Campbell when asked, how important is it to get the offensive line back to where it was? He said, quote, "It's everything." Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they've treated it like it's everything so far?
Well, if they draft a tackle in the first round, yes, because you will have upgraded your youth, and maybe talent, because Decker was, like I said, I don't know if a first round tackle steps into the league and he's automatically an average tackle, like a middle of the road starting tackle, which is what you got in Decker. Like he was an average, maybe slightly above average offensive tackle. That's a lot to ask out of a rookie, but it's possible. Right. Yep. I think a guy, again, this is why I lean towards Blake Miller, because I think he steps off the bus and he's ready to go. Like he's in that mix right off the bat. Whereas Freeling, who has a better upside, he's maybe not in that initial, conversation. So if you get a guy like Blake Miller, yes, because then you will have gotten younger with a good floor and a high ceiling at tackle. You will have upgraded your OT3. I like Juice Scruggs better than I like Michael Neese. You still have Miles Frazier, who you're developing, right?
Yeah.
You've gotten younger and more stylistically fit at center. And then if you draft a center too, that helps all the mix. But Giovanni Manu is your OT4, in my opinion, and now gets him into OT4 status. And when you walk into the season, I believe you could end up with a better functioning, more stylistically representative offensive line than what you had last year. And it's hard to say like that's where they'll get to, but there's the potential for it to be better. They still have to make the moves though to get it there.
Yeah. There are a couple moves at offensive line that I don't like that they did this offseason. One is Taylor Decker. And we've talked enough about it where I'm at an understanding of why they did everything they did. I don't think it was handled particularly well. And I don't like the fact that he's off the roster and now you're going into the draft where you almost certainly need to draft a tackle. That's not a great place to be in. Graham one I understood. I wanted a bigger upgrade at center, but I also understand the options were limited. McGovern never hit free agency. You were never going to give Tyler Lindenbaum the deal that he got, and nor should they have. Biotish would have been my preference over Cade Mays, but I don't know if the Lions ever had a legitimate shot at Biotish. There were trade options that I liked, but also never knew if they were legit possibilities.
Right. Takes two to tango in that situation,
yes.
right?
So did they do everything I want so far to upgrade the offensive line? No. Is it better than it was last year? I can't say for sure. It seems pretty even. If they had an offensive tackle, maybe it's a little bit better. But here's what I know. I know there's going to be more competition on the interior now because you have Juice Scruggs, because you have Cade Mays, because you have, at least as of right now, a healthy Christian Mahogany and Miles Frazier. And you're going to have a guy who finished the season pretty darn well at right guard in Tate Ratledge entering year 2.
Yeah. Yep.
So there is hope for that offensive line in the way that it didn't feel like there was at the end of last year.
Yeah, I think the depth will be upgraded. I really think that's what it is. The depth will be upgraded. The starters are younger and more and will hopefully be, if they draft one, a stylistic fit for what they're looking for. And so, yeah, You're hoping you're making steps in the right direction to fulfill what Dan was looking for.
All right, we are gonna fit in. I'm gonna say two more. Jason Krolik, who submitted a ton of really good questions, and I only had to pick one, so I'm picking this one, says, the Lions could free up more money for free agency this year, but haven't thus far. What does that tell you about their strategy for building a roster this year and into the future? So I think this is in reference to a couple things. One is when they did the Jared Goff restructure, they left about $13 million on the table that they could have restructured that would have freed up, another $7 or $8 million. And obviously they haven't restructured Amon-Ra or Panay, some of the other guys that were available to restructure. So I know some people are frustrated over that because it's doing what a lot, it goes back to the same conversation it feels like we've been having for a couple of years now. It's like, do you go all in this year, or do you make sure to maintain a certain baseline of competitiveness in the future? Are you willing to mortgage at least part of your ability to become competitive in the future for now? And I think that's kind of the main takeaway for me is they want to make sure they're not mortgaging their future too much.
Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this. I'm on the same page. They always have the option to restructure more.
Yes.
Right. They can always do that if they have to go that route. They just did what they needed to do to execute their plan. If it turns out they end up needing more, they've got options to do it. You can't unring that bell.
Yes.
Right. You can't take it back and be like, oh, never mind, we don't need this extra money anymore. So they're just preparing for what they need now.
Right.
Or what they believe they need now. And
I think people should also pay attention across the league. Daily there are, this guy got restructured. This guy got restructured. Josh Allen got restructured. Jonathan Cooper today, there was a report that he got restructured, the Broncos linebacker. Teams are adjusting their cap space as needed. And the Lions could very much fit in that mold. If they decide they want to go get Cameron Jordan and they're like, we're a little tight against the cap, Amon-Ra, come here for a second. They can do that.
The nice thing is that it looks like they've already pigeoned some, stored some money away for the draft.
Sure.
Right. And so that money is just sitting there that they can borrow against. Right. And they can be like, oh, they're not going to have to wait on a contract restructure in order to sign somebody today. They have the money to sign somebody today. If they then do the restructure later, it will be to adjust for the season, adjust for the draft class, stuff like that. They're not limited. They're not going to be in conversations with Cam Jordan and be like, hold on, pause Cam Jordan. Let me go talk to Amon-Ra for a second. It's not like that. They're in a spot where they can do what they need to do and make adjustments down the road.
100%. All right, last question here comes from Andrew M., one of our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. Thank you again, Andrew, for being a subscriber. It says, is there a reason other than trying to do right by him we didn't try to trade Taylor Decker for some minimal compensation before releasing him? Or is it possible Brad quietly tried and had no suitors since he publicly asked for a release and or had a large contract?
Yep, think this is the last one right there. I think he probably was interested, but once Decker said, I want to be released, the cat's out the bag, and that was it. We just saw this with a different person. Oh, man. Not Rashawn Gary, because that was just Dallas being stupid. But a similar thing where the Browns, an offensive lineman that the Browns signed, where they were like, hey, with the setter from the Packers. They knew
not Jenkins.
Elgin Jenkins.
I thought Jenkins is a guy that
Elgin Jenkins.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Packers tried to trade Elgin Jenkins,
right,
and the Browns were in conversation with the Packers about him, and then said, "No, we don't like the price," and stopped. And because they knew the Packers were going to be up against the cap, right, and then they cut him, and then the Browns signed him without having to give up compensation.
Yeah,
I fully think it's the same thing. There are probably teams that were interested in Decker. One, maybe not his price tag.
Yeah.
Two, didn't want to give up capital to go get him, knowing that he was probably going to be released anyways. And then sure enough, that's where he is. So I just think teams weren't going to bite once he said, I want out. Right. And again, that cap it was kind of high.
I do. What would be interesting to find out, and we never will, is whether the Lions had those trade discussions before Decker went and said, "Hey, I have requested my release."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would
We
imagine,
don't know.
like, that would be the proper way to do things. Is like while you're having these pay cut discussions with Taylor Decker, you're like, okay, if you're not willing to take a pay cut, can we at least like shop you a little bit? Can we see if there's another team? You'll get paid what we would have paid you, where you're going, as long as you're okay with going to wherever we find. And maybe we can even work that out. Like, we have a couple suitors. Which one would you
Very
prefer?
Montgomery type situation.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very possible those conversations happened, and when they either didn't get the deal they were looking for, or they got no suitors, or whatever, said, sorry, we couldn't find a trade, we're just going to let you go. And then Decker puts out the statement saying, hey, I requested my release, and all that happened. All that very, like, those are the kind of things that happen behind the scenes with a lot of teams that we just never hear about. And so I would
hear about years later, right?
I would hope that's exactly how things played out, but I've criticized the way the Lions handled that situation because, again, when Taylor Decker goes out there and says there were some surprise conversations that we had after I said I was returning, that to me tells me that the Lions weren't completely transparent about what Taylor Decker's situation was, which is very clearly either you retire, you come back here on a reduced salary, or we're not keeping you. And I don't know if the Lions just thought that he'd take a pay cut out of loyalty and thought not to bring it up to him. But if Decker's telling of how things went is the truth, then I think the Lions dropped the ball there a little bit.
I think they fully believed he was going to retire, and were bracing for that, and didn't want to like say anything negative about him, right? Like, I think they wanted to save face with the player, but
by doing so, they effed up. They made it worse. They made it worse for him. You're trying to protect him, and you did the opposite. If that's the case,
and but that's my read of the situation. Yeah, is that they were trying to save face, and maybe they overdid a little bit, and they were expecting him to retire. Yeah, and then when he didn't, they were like, okay, things have changed since we last talked. Here's where we're at. And, in the moment when they said them, they could have very much believed them. But then as they go into their offseason strategy and they start making decisions, they could have changed their mind. But yeah, I do think sometimes, when you speak publicly and you're trying not to, you're trying to look good and trying to make someone else look good. Yeah. You can sometimes put your foot in your mouth, and maybe they did a little bit here, but it's things change, and unfortunately it sounds like they did. The philosophies changed on how they were going to approach roster building.
All right. That is where we're going to leave things at. We're going to talk to our live audience here for a little bit. So if you're listening on the PODcast, you can always jump over to our YouTube or Twitch pages and see the rest of our conversation here. But going to be on a little bit of a break here. I am, at least. If you're seeking more Lions free agency talk and analysis, one, you can always go to the website at prideofdetroit.com. Two, I know Miko and Morgan are going to continue to produce videos over on our YouTube page, breaking down all the Lions' latest signings, latest losses in free agency. Hopefully we've reached a point where the bleeding stops there. I don't even know how many players the Lions could even stand to lose at this point. But if you really need the Lions podcast itch, make sure you're going and getting all of the audio video content we have over on our YouTube page. And I know Miko and Ryan stand to maybe record a podcast or two if some big news breaks. But that's it for me for a week. Not that long. I'll be back and ready to go for phase 4 of free agency. And in the meantime, Pride Detroit's in great hands with our general manager, our offseason general manager.
I'm the captain now, man.
Until next time, everybody.
That gift.
That's Erik Schlitt. I'm Jeremy Reisman. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for supporting. It's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
All right. We will hang out. I will give you guys at least 10 minutes. I know a lot of you might currently be watching Christian Izien's press conference, which is happening literally at this moment. I'll give you some quotes that have come in. According to Colton Pouncey, I do see myself as a starter in in this league. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. According to Mike Payton, says the Lions haven't given him any indication exactly where he'll be, but his versatility was discussed. That is literally any player that we talk with will say that. And maybe I think it's actually probably true. Like, I don't think the Lions wouldn't up to him and be like, hey, now that you're signed, you're going to be our starting nickel. Like, that's not what the Lions do. They're not going to hand you a starting role.
They're not the Cleveland Browns. How do you think Kingsley felt when they signed the Elgin Jenkins?
I didn't even think about that. Hey, he'll get a chance to compete with Elgin Jenkins.
Maybe Jenkins will shift back to guard. You know, who knows? I like Elgin. I actually think he's a good player. I don't get
my favorite
a little bit, but.
questions that new free agents gets all the time, and it's the reporters are doing their job. I'm not criticizing the questions. It's just you get the same answers from everyone. Is what position are you going to play? Well, I don't know yet. We're working on that out. Did you have other opportunities? And
but you gotta ask that question.
You have to ask both of these, but
just
you
in
get
case
the
they
same
slip
answers
up
every single time. It's like, oh yeah, I had other opportunities. I'm not going to discuss those.
Or you're like Pacheco, and you're like, I had 8, including Kansas City, and I chose to come here.
Did he
instead
say that?
Of staying? Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I must have missed that one. Sometimes
and
they will.
The fact that he signed in Kansas, that he signed for what he did or what he reportedly did, and had an offer to stay home, and was like, nah, I don't want to compete with Kenneth Walker. I'm gonna go where he said it over and over. I felt wanted here. Wanted here.
He did hear him say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they may have been like, yeah, we'll give you a vet minimum and you can take the leftovers from Kenneth Walker. And he was like, nah,
dude.
See you later. Yeah. I think they kind of soured on him for whatever reason.
But he when he was asked about his time in Kansas City, he was just like, oh man, I love everyone there.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't.
But everybody who leaves, 80% of the people who leave are typically mad at the front office that they just left.
Oh, of course.
Right?
I haven't had a chance. Did anyone watch? I know Anzalone had his intro presser yesterday.
I did not. No.
Because I wonder if we're gonna have like a Jamal Williams type blowout this offseason. By someone.
He was the most unhappy person I've ever seen with his contract. I've never seen
Jamal?
someone more unhappy.
Or Alex.
Right,
which is why I kind of circled him as the one most likely to do a Jamal. I love Jamal Williams, and I'm not trying to insult him here, but man, did he fumble the bag that offseason.
Oh, his agent did him wrong.
Yeah.
Did not read the room or the market. The way
and I feel bad for him for certain. Like,
I'm
not going to cry over a guy who made a ton of money, but at the same time, like he went from the pinnacle of his career to immediately like
to the floor,
the floor. Like it was in an off season when it didn't have to happen. He could have stayed here and produced. I won't say David Montgomery numbers, but not far from David Montgomery numbers.
But he would have been in that role, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, yeah. It was you've seen this with guys.
Yeah.
Like he's not the only one either. Like there's several guys.
It's why I'll never
Reynolds.
I'll never fault a player for going and chasing the bag.
No.
But you have to also, there has to be like a secondary priority that you adhere to, because one, contracts are fickle. Any 3-year deal is really a 2-year deal. Any 2-year deal is really a 1-year deal. And you have to keep your long-term future in mind in terms of your viability, because all it takes is one terrible season and people unfairly or fairly will be like, oh, he's washed. And do I think Jamal is washed? I mean, maybe at this point, but do I think he was washed after one season in New Orleans? No.
No.
But he would never get another chance.
Where did he sign?
Nowhere. He's been out of the league.
He has been? I thought he was with someone last year. No, he wasn't with anyone last year. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not recognize that. I thought he was still I thought he went from the Saints somewhere else, didn't he? He didn't go somewhere else and then get a chance and it didn't work?
I feel like maybe he got I think he got visits, but he never signed anywhere.
Oh, man.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's crazy.
I feel even worse now. I feel even worse then.
Yeah.
And he's 30 now. Who's going to give him a shot at 30?
I hope he's found peace in a life after football, because I don't think he's.
Well, talk about a Debbie Downer bummer of a thing, man. Holy cow.
It's crazy. It's crazy to go from 1,066 yards and 17 touchdowns to 306 yards and 1 touchdown. And then 164 yards and 1 touchdown. That is
then out.
And I swear it never felt like a talent thing. It wasn't a good fit. And I mean, that New Orleans team was terrible.
Oh yeah. And they had Kamara. Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's not like he was coming in to be the guy.
Right. Kamara averaged 3.9 yards per carry that year. Jamal 2.9. Oh, whew. Can I get some for Twitch subscribers? Can I get some Jamal Williams emojis in the chat? Shout out to him. Feel bad for how things went out. Wah, wah. I can't do the zoom in, but I would like to. There he is.
I mean, we've seen. This is how it goes. Yeah. I think Anzalone misjudged his price as well, right? I kind of touched on that earlier, but
yeah, but I still think he got what he wanted in that. Now he's home. Now he's no tax on his income, and he's still with like a like. I think we all were like, oh God, that guy's going to go to the Jets, and he's just going to be a culture setter for the rest of his career, and that's it.
They should have done that. What's he?
But like, he's with a semi-contender. I don't know. I haven't done a big look into what Tampa looks like these days, but
I haven't either.
For like, he's on a more competitive football team, so I think it's about as good of a situation as he could have fallen into.
The way he fell out with the front office was just like he could see he saw the writing on the wall and he wasn't happy about it, and it was very obvious.
Was I having this conversation with you or the PODcast crew where it's just like, it kind of feels like we've gotten into a good cop, bad cop situation with the Lions organization, where Brad's the bad cop and Dan's the good cop. Dan's just the guy that, like, oh my God, Anzalone's the heartbeat of our team. He's so important to what we do. And then Brad's like, yeah, we're not re-signing you.
Well, to be fair, Dan, in the same breath, Anzalone is the heartbeat of our team. This is Jack Campbell's defense now.
True. True. Very true.
I think Dan's good cop all the way. Yes. You know what I mean? To find Dan's bad cop, though, you have to look for it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And you can see it if you learn to read him a little bit, you know what I mean? But like, sure. It's, I really think he got the message.
Yeah.
Last year.
Oh, no
and
doubt.
Was like, I don't know how many times, like, I was talking in the locker room with somebody and was like, yeah, he's done. Like, it's
interesting too, because I think there's this perception amongst fans and even maybe some analysts that, like, the foundation of this culture is cracking a little bit because, you know, Alex Anzalone is upset, and to some degree, clearly Taylor Decker was upset. And
Decker didn't show it though. Decker was always
right.
It's very professional,
but it's just in that statement of like,
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a surprise to me. He even
Sure.
used the word amicable in like the same
He's
post.
always been honest. Yeah, Decker's always been honest and
Right.
upfront.
Which is why I
he's
think
been very-
he probably took a little bit of like, why weren't you honest and upfront with me? But anyways, the point being,
I think maybe they were at the time, and then it changed. So you know what I mean? Like maybe
Right.
they had good
Maybe.
intentions, but either way.
are you frozen? Okay, you're there.
No.
I think I don't really agree with this perception that the Lions are like suddenly not doing right by their players, or their, the culture is being lost in terms of how they treat their players. They've always kind of drawn a hard line with some of these players.
Yeah, always. That's
And
why
it's
this
the
is the
Jamal
price tag. It's
situation.
like Jamal Williams
Yes.
is the greatest example of it.
Right.
Yep.
Where it's
love this guy, feature him Hard Knocks, right?
Yep.
Like the whole
they
whole
love the
9
players,
yards.
but there has to be a financial responsibility to how they operate, and I'm not always going to agree with what they do. I still I don't like what they did with Taylor Decker, both in terms of how they handled it and the end result. But there has to be a business side of things. You can't reward everybody as much as you may want to, and so
We've been saying. Go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think there's this ripple effect that people are gonna like, that the oh man, the locker room, you did Decker dirty, you did Anzalone dirty, like, you guys don't actually care about us as much as you say you do. There might be a little bit of that, but I think the veterans, even the Anzalones and the Deckers of the world, understand that there's a business aspect to it, and they might not understand it as much as cap analysts do or general managers do, and sometimes it feels like maybe even we do. But you've been around this league long enough. You've seen really good, really talented players leave places that you'd never thought they'd leave, because that's just the financial reality of the situation.
This is what the league has created.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, they've certainly made business mistakes along the way. We talked about the Montgomery extension a couple weeks ago. They mitigated, I think, most of that damage with what they got in the trade. I think a lot of people rightfully point to the Derek Barnes extension as a mistake. People are, I think, unfairly saying the same thing with Kirby Joseph, like they should have known about the knee before they gave him that extension. I don't know. Because there's so much unknowns there. I'm like, I don't know. But like, I don't know. The one that I'm still, I might be proven wrong, but I think both you and I were a little bit caught off guard by the JMO extension.
Oh yeah. At the time, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
Now I think he's grown into that. And your fingers crossing, you're hoping that the Barnes is a similar path. You're hoping Barnes grows into this role.
But that one was just weird from the beginning,
like.
though, because it was like he was coming off the season where he played 2 games and suffered a serious injury, and then you decided to give him an extension.
Yeah. And it was way more than what anyone had anticipated.
Right. And it has some people wondering whether if they didn't do that extension, would Alex still be here? And it's a fair question to ask, but part of me is like,
100%.
I don't know. If they're doing this whole youth movement thing, that might have been Alex has gone either way.
Yes. Yeah, I think I agree with that. The Barnes situation, the Barnes contract makes me feel like they were looking ahead to this youth movement being this season, and we're planning it by trying to solidify Derek Barnes. So
yeah.
While it's new to all of us and we're all kind of like looking at this going, oh, it's very possible that this was put in play like a year ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Right. I
will say the thing that caught me most off guard, and I'll admit that I was 100% wrong. We dropped some frames earlier. Are we okay? Anyways, I really thought the way that the team was speaking at the combine, that this team would be a little bit more aggressive in free agency. All the talk of like bringing in competition and every year doesn't have to be the same, and not using the vacation analogy and saying, I said that last year, but like, we could be, we're malleable. We adjust our strategy. It really felt like this could have been a different offseason. And in a lot of ways it is different, but in a lot of ways it's also the same in that they didn't make any sort of splashy moves. They haven't even made any splashy re-signings at this point. That's the one thing where it's like, Brad Holmes can't be like, well, we consider this a splash signing. We brought back our own guy. We gave him this. That's a splash signing to us. They don't even have that right now, right? What is
Rock, Malcolm, Nowoski, Levi, Rock. 3.5 million. Look at that.
Right.
Our backup corner.
Yeah.
That's our splash re-signing.
And again,
I hear you.
It could be coming, but
so
this has been a conservative offseason even by their own metrics.
So Joey Tiger, Joe a Tiger. Sorry, Joe.
That's okay. I do all the time with him.
I know.
He's used to it.
Wow. I'm old. My vision doesn't quite work. Says, how different would the offseason be if in free agency if they ended up with a left tackle and a defensive end, like Decker or Walker, and then Clowney or Jordan? I think it would be different even if they added one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe the fan base, and I'm again generalizing, but even if they added both of those, I still think the fan base would be complaining because that's what they do. They're like, hey, but we don't have a linebacker. Like, we don't have a nickel. I think in general, like some of the conversations I've had with people who are self-proclaimed casuals, like they're like, I'm only a casual fan, so I only know the names they say on the television when I watch the games. You know what I mean? The names that they're hearing leaving are big names, the Anzalones, the Montgomerys, right? And so like the perception is still that they're shedding all of these name guys and then not really bringing in guys that they hear, the names that they hear on television on Sunday, right? Like the Lions are building like depth, solid players, but there's no splash. The only splash ones are exiting. And so for most fans, I think you're looking at this offseason, even if you would have brought in one name, that probably wouldn't have been enough to really change a lot of the perception. And again, I'm talking in general, the whole large audience, not the highly educated people that tune into us.
But I mean, I think it's also fair to be frustrated. It's fair to be skeptical because that's where we're at.
They had made those moves.
Yes,
they still would have. Yeah,
right. Because where we're at, the Lions have gotten worse this offseason. I don't think anyone can deny that. I think the full picture isn't there yet, but you've gotten worse at running back. You've gotten I don't know, maybe a little bit worse at wide receiver. Offensive line is even, maybe. Defensive line is worse. Linebacker is worse. Corner is probably worse. Safety is the same. But you're banking on young players taking a jump. You're banking on some of these guys that you're bringing in, competition, all that sort of stuff. But it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be concerned. Yeah. I'm not gonna bother with like some of these extreme emotions right now because it's an incomplete vision at this point. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell you you're being ridiculous if you're mad. Like, go ahead and be mad. I'm not just going to participate in that because it's wasted emotion, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, it's a situation where I understand. I'm with you. I get the frustration. I do. And so like who was just telling me that I was wrong?
Write his name down.
No. But like I'm not trying to tell fans that they're wrong at all. Like, I'm just saying the loudest voices, the voices that complain, the loudest voices, those are the ones that we're hearing the most right now. And it's just, I agree. I'll just reiterate, I guess, what you're saying is that we have to see how the season plays out. We have to,
Yeah.
or this off season plays out. There's still a lot that has to go on, and you can feel how you want. I just think the general consensus from a lot of fans is negative, and some of it is warranted, and some of it isn't, and that's just
What-
the phase that we're at. Like it's why, like, the Cade Mays grade. I was shocked that 92% of the vote that we had in our fan vote for K's made was a B or above, a B or an A. I was
Right.
shocked it was over 90%. I didn't expect that, because 90% of what I hear was people telling me that Cade Mays signing was garbage, because that's what's being thrown at me all the time on social media. So, I don't know, it's interesting.
What
It gave me some pause.
you recently wrote an article about like the division odds. What,
Yeah.
do you remember what they were?
Lions are projected to win the North still.
But do you
was,
remember like the specific figures by any chance?
I can look it up. It was in my winners and losers.
Oh,
I had
that's
to
where it
do
was.
that.
Okay.
I had to do it right off the top. Yeah, it was super fun to have to include that in that article. The Lions were
Plus 160.
160. Yep, plus 160. Packers were a little
180.
bit different. The Lions were plus 170, or they slid from 160 to 170. So now they're at 170. They were 170 when I wrote the article.
Well, let me tell
I
you
don't know if
this.
that's where they're at now, but
They are currently plus 160 again. The Packers, who were at the time of that writing 2 days ago at plus 180, they're at plus 200 now.
yeah.
The Lions have created room. The Bears are still a distant plus 340. The Vikings are plus 600. I understand that this isn't a prediction model. It's more of a reaction of betting trends.
Yeah. Yep.
But I
It's
think
both.
this,
But
like,
yes,
let's
more aligned.
widening our scope. The Packers have not gotten better this offseason. The Bears have not gotten better this offseason. The Vikings, I don't know. Depends on how much Kyler Murray moves your bar.
What's the old adage in the NFL? If you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any.
Right. Listen, this goes back to what I was saying. Like, the good teams in the NFL regularly get worse during free agency. That is how it's work. That is how the system is set up. The key is to have your young players get better from year to year. The key is you have a really good core set of players already, and you draft well. And you fill in free agency some of those partial roles. I think I was talking to Brett over the phone yesterday, and he's like, free agency shouldn't be your solutions. They should be your Band-Aids. And that's what the Lions are trying to do. They're getting Band-Aids.
Yep.
And it's not going to make your team significantly better. It's just not. And it might get worse. And it is worse right now. But I truly believe, and this is the part where I think I diverge from some people, I truly believe last year was their floor. Given all the talent they had on that team, given the
Sure, they underperformed.
They underperformed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That level of talent every year, whether it's health luck, whether it's in-game luck, whether it's schedule luck, they perform better most years than they did last year. That was a talent-wise, that was a Super Bowl capable team. I truly believe that. Maybe people disagree, and that's fine. But I think you are still carrying a floor that might not be that high yet. But I think their ceiling can still be that high. I do. Did I talk in absolutes? What did I say? What did I say that was an absolutism? And I also, like, I understand sitting here and saying last year was their floor it's easy to say that, right? Things maybe like that is just conjecture. That is nothing I can prove. That might be cope. That might be just something that homerism people say is like, oh, that's the worst possible case scenario. We're actually a much better team. I understand what that can sound like to people that don't believe me. But I just, given everything that team has accomplished in the previous 2 years and given where the roster was compared to those previous 2 years, not enough change for me to believe that was a true 9-8 team.
The key thing that people have to remember and keep, I think, telling themselves is that this is a weekend of free agency. We're not heading into training camp tomorrow.
Right.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
If this is the roster, if this is all that they do in free agency and then they don't draft well and this is what goes into free agency, okay, great. I will entertain
the doomerism.
A lot more. Yeah, 100%.
If I come back off the cruise
Yeah.
and I step on ground again and the team looks no different than it does now, I'm not going to panic, but I'll join you guys. The chorus of like, what's happening? This is concerning.
There's so much more to go.
Yeah.
They have so many more ways to get better, and you have, and that's where I'm at. Like
yeah.
They're not playing a game tomorrow. They're playing a game in 6 months.
In a lot of ways, I wish they were though, because then we could just talk about football and that.
Well,
bring out our pitchforks.
The off season can be very fun. There's just certain parts of the off season you want to fast forward through.
What's the fun part?
Oh, the acquisition. I love getting new players. I love learning about these new guys.
Oh, I do too.
Finding out how they fit, how you can get better at those positions. That's exciting. There's just certain parts that you want to just hit the fast forward button on. That's all.
It's most parts. It's most parts.
No.
It's most parts. I hate everything leading up to free agency. I hate the first week of free agency because for the past 5 years, it's been the exact same every year where it's like, we're not getting enough guys that I wanted. Rage. And then I hate the following month and a half where we're talking about draft a million times a guys, a million times a day. And then draft weekend is crazy for us and stressful and exhausting. Plus, you get the fans that are rage. They didn't get the edge player I want. Rage. And then maybe like the week after the draft.
I love that.
That's the sweet spot. The week after the draft where I get to jump into the tape. I get to enough people have like quieted. They're raging. That's the fun part for me. That 1 week after the draft.
I think there's more fun in there. I think there's more fun in there than what you do, but that's just that's the joy of having different perspectives, right?
Ooh, let me Argantis has an interesting comment, and I'm trying to decide if I agree or disagree. It says the Lions did not lose one core player yet, but they did potentially add one in Mays. I think I would contend that Anzalone was a core player. And maybe Decker too.
They lost leadership. That's for certain. That's where my biggest concern right now is just the leadership perspective. But they also have like a lot of young guys that are ready to step into that, right? But and so
It is.
It's an interesting question because I agree with you. I think Anzalone was a core player, but I also think you can replace him with a core player, with a top 50 player. You know, I think you can.
There's a lot of you could replace him with a top 50 player, but you only have 2 top 50 picks.
Well, right, but I'm saying you could if you take a linebacker. But again, if you change your philosophy on defense and you want less 3 linebacker sets, then you replace him in a different way, right? Like. So
I disagree that Decker wasn't a performer on the field anymore. I think Decker was still a good left tackle, not just above average. I think he was still a good left tackle, and those are not easy to find. There are not 64 good tackles in the NFL, and I think Decker was one of them.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I think replacing Anzalone will be easier to do than replacing Decker. That's one of the reasons why, and another reason why I think they go offensive tackle in the first round.
Yeah.
Because you have a chance to get 2 core players in this draft at a minimum. If you can turn a Magic on day 3 into a core player, like Brad has done in the past, like, great. You want to come out of this draft with 3 guys that are going to be part of your foundational floor for this draft. That's what you want. Every
Good
draft,
luck.
that's what I say.
I know.
Every draft you want to come out with 3. And every
the toughest
draft,
one.
that's the goal. Well, because you don't have a third, but like Brad has turned a lot of day 3 guys into good pieces.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he can do it again. The nice thing with this draft is that there are going to be talented players on day 3, like in the 4th round, who are probably at a similar level of play as the guys that are going in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Right. So like they'll have a chance to get 2 really good players in the top 50.
Yep.
And then those 4th round picks, but they have 2 of them now. Those 4th round picks could end up being as quality of a player as someone that you could get in the 3rd.
Yeah.
And you hit on those 2 picks, or just 1, and you come out with 3 guys. That's what you want. If you hit on all 4, all the better, But there's an opportunity.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was a day 3 starter.
Right. Amon-Ra's a day 3 guy that turned into starter. Derek Barnes is a day 3 guy that turned into starter. Mahogany is a day 3 guy that turned into a starter. Malcolm started at one point when the roster was
rookie
thin
season,
enough, right?
Yeah.
And right. And so you can get these. You've seen Brad do it before.
Yeah.
The problem is he's got to do it now. He's got to do it again.
Yep.
You can't. The strategy that they've set up, he's got to hit again. At least one of those day 3 guys has to be something good right out the gate.
And you know what? Take a risk on him. Like go for a small school guy, maybe someone who played in a different country.
I don't know about that. Not this year. Again, that's a different class. In that draft class. No, but in that draft class, there were 75 guys that were like really good, and then it just fell off. Then it was a lot of it was all gambles after that.
Yeah.
Like it really was. Which is why they took the guys that they did at the spots they did. And in that class, you're lucky to turn a 6th rounder into a starter.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm just saying, sometimes perception would be on these draft picks would be wildly different if the order in which they were taken was different.
Yeah.
If Mahogany was a 4th round pick and Mounty was a 6th round pick, the perception on those 2 players would be wildly different. If Branch was a 1st round pick and Jack Campbell was a 2nd round pick, or you know what I mean? Like those, we've had that. Sure. That's the conversation we were having at the time. Like sometimes perception really changes what we expect out of these players, and it makes it hard.
All right, let me read through some alerts here, and then we got to get out of here. Probably. What happened?
Okay.
Oh.
I was just my ears were getting a little out.
I thought maybe your headphones died.
No, they were just sitting funny.
Downgrade 20 months subscribed on Twitch says, happy Barry anniversary. What the F is Brad doing? I'm panicking a little. Save me from my emotional, spiritual, for my wife's sake. Well, I mean, I hope whatever we just said in the past 15 minutes was relatively inspiring. I know people in the chat seem to be flipping between I'm being a homer that's protecting the team I cover and I'm a wet blanket. So I think that probably accurate describes my current feelings, though. It's like, yeah, there is a considerable amount of worry because Brad Holmes' job is incredibly hard right now, but I'm also not going to lose my mind at a partial picture. Carrying the water for the team with your wet blanket. That's you know what? That feels like a good Twitter bio. I'm talking out of every side, so I can't be wrong. Now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. Perpetual fence sitter, Jeremy Reisman. That's me. Augustina, thank you for the subscription over on YouTube. And DC Smithers, £2 super chat says the Zach Bond contract changed things for Anzalone.
I don't know Zach Bond's contract.
He got a huge raise. I think it was was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year, and his eyes lit up, right? I think that's the argument. Zach Bond got paid, and Alex Anzalone's like, oh,
yes. Yeah, he thought he was worth. He was talking about like, hey, I should be making 12 to 14, $15 million. He was firmly in the belief that that's what where his contract should be based on what he was doing for the team, the style of player that he was. That's where he thought his value was.
Right. But
the problem is the rest of the league didn't view that.
I'm glad Zach Bond is brought up because to me, that's not talked about enough with the Eagles. Like everyone pays attention to the big swinging moves that the Eagles make, right? It's a trade for this. It's a trade for that. It's the go get one splashy free agent signings. Part of the reason, do you remember what he signed for originally in Philly? 1 year, $3.5 million.
Oh yeah, and then he balled out. Right.
Yes,
yeah.
He balls out,
and
then he
gets
he
was going to go into the
$51 million deal.
It's coming back to me now.
That's what the Lions are trying to do right now. They're trying to hit on those 1 year, $3.5 million deals, and then they explode. Like you're trying to find those diamonds in the rough. Not easy to do, but a lot of the really, really successful teams do that sort of thing. The Eagles do that sort of thing. We only pay attention to the big splashy stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't see, that you don't pay attention to, that become big things. The difference here being is they were able to re-sign him to that big 3-year, $51 million deal, and the Lions are in a place right now where they get some of those splashy guys, not on the Zach Bond level, obviously, but like those mid-tier guys. Your Meek Robertsons, I'm drawing a blank of all the guys that signed elsewhere. Your Roy Lopez's, right? Where you chose not to re-sign those guys, but you got them. You got incredible value out of them last year.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, all right. I think it's about time to get out of here. Sorry, I'm just paying attention to other messages. Like I said, we won't be live on Twitch or YouTube for another week here. I'll be back next Friday. Probably more likely on Saturday or Sundays. The next time we'll be live, not this, obviously Saturday or Sunday, the week after. But we will still have plenty of video, audio content coming out via our YouTube page. So if you're a Twitch viewer, make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube and get all the latest native content over there. We'll try to hopefully put some of that on prideofdetroit.com as well. So if you miss it over on YouTube, you can see it on the website. How many pre-writes are after? Just one. And
yeah. Golly, I'm waiting on that one.
Yeah, it'll. I'm confident. I'm confident in you that it'll happen.
Yeah, let's hope my source comes through.
Listen, I got to break news yesterday. That was fun.
Man, I got it. There's a teaser. I got something in my back pocket. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. That's one of those moves, though, that I'm like, oh, yeah, they can take their time with that. It'll happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Anyways, enough teasing. We're going to get out of here. Appreciate all the support. I know y'all are emotional and upset. And if you want to take it out on us, I'll take it. It's fine.
Not me. I'm sensitive. Be nice to me.
I'm sensitive, too. But I feel like when I'm on the podcast, I'm a little less sensitive. On Twitter, I'm a little more sensitive and more prone to lashing out. And if I lashed at you, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a little frustrated too. But let's wait. Let's wait. Things could turn around. Are they going to like fully turn around, or the Lions going to go and make a big splashy move? Probably not. But let's hope they find some of those diamonds in the rough. They find the next Zach Baum. They find the next Amik Robertson. Maybe they did. Maybe Izien is that guy. I would not put it past Izien. Like, he seems like a guy who could step in and be like, oh, dang, this guy pretty good. But we'll see. Anyways, appreciate all the support, and go to PrideDetroit.com. Become a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber. I know Ty's got something in the works. We got to talk through some stuff. I know Ty's watching too, so everyone say hi to Ty. And we will see you guys in a week or so. All right. See you guys later. Bye. There's Ty at the very bottom.